Hey everyone, I'm Army Gaming, welcome back to my channel and welcome to a monster analysis on the upcoming monster Gurlik, who will be available in the Swamp Riders team race. For a long time, Warspells was unhappy with the direction the Orc tribe was taking. He missed the old days and his deceased leader Gurlik, who had been betrayed and was thrown into the swamp by his successor Borjork. Warspells felt so nostalgic that he decided to do something about it. He gathered all his charms and potions and found a concussion to summon Gurlik from the dead. However, Warspells is a shaman, not a professional resurrector. Should have called Sammy. The result was that Gurlik returned more like a zombie than the impressive orc he used to be. He rose from the bed of the swamp, pale-faced yet glorious, riding a massive toll called Gurmit. And he should have been riding like Montezuma. And even though he was changed, to this day he still remembers everything that had happened to him, and vengeance is how the blood running through his once dead veins. Gurlik is back. You gotta love the Monster Legends store. They put a lot of thought into this. So we're gonna be doing a monster analysis on this upcoming monster. So now this way you and your team can start deciding whether or not you even want to go for this monster. So Gurlik, let's get right into the analysis. His life stat is 33,779. I should mention that he's a nature monster. He's actually a nature attacker. So with that being said, in the nature category, this life stat it's not necessarily that high. It's in the top 15. So I'll leave it at that. His power, on the other hand, that is quite impressive. 3542 for the nature category. That is the second highest power stat in the nature category, tied with the judgment. The only monster that has a higher power stat in the nature category than this power stat is the monster that killed him, Borjork. Borjork has 3608, so he beats him by a couple points. And then in terms of speed, this monster is 3432, which is nothing too spectacular. It's the 7th highest stat in the nature category. There's quite a few monsters that have this same speed stat. Short comes to mind, General Altus, Petroloas, Kiridar, if you want like some monsters to compare. It's not necessarily a bad speed stat. There's definitely faster monsters, but he's an attacker, so his speed stat, it doesn't matter too much. What matters is his power stat. On top of that, this monster has the evolving trait, and he's one of those that has an evolving trait at rank 3 and at rank 5. So first of all, he starts off with Orc. There's a 25% chance to not get hit with negative effects. At rank 3, he gets the Gravedigger trait. This is what the Undertaker has. Basically, he's immune to possessions and special possessions, which are called corruption, and he's also immune to nightmares. Or is it bleeding? I believe it's nightmares. And then lastly, at rank 5, he gives himself a self-status caster stun immunity. Meaning essentially when this monster is all fully ranked up, he can't be possessed and he can't be stunned, at least at the start of the battle. And then he has a 25% chance to negate everything else, and he also can't be hit with nightmares. Okay, not too bad. It is unfortunate that we gotta rank him up all the way to get that stun immunity, but that's just how it is. This monster is gonna be a team race monster, so a lot of teams will be getting this monster at the very least at rank 3, possibly rank 4. Rank 4 plus some cells, so it's not necessarily that difficult to rank him up to rank 5. It's still going to be a little expensive though, and it really depends on what kind of team you have and how active you guys are during the team race. But again, I'm doing this analysis so you guys can start deciding whether or not you want this monster, because if you do want this monster, it's time to start saving some gems. With that being said, this monster can hold the Sword Relic and the Shield Relic. So perfect, the Sword Relic is always perfect for an attacker, the Shield Relic just increases his survivability. In terms of the books, this monster is a villain monster, the underworld monster, and the undead. I think that's perfectly fitting. And with that being said, let's get into his skills. He has Use Poison Tongue, which deals moderate nature damage to an enemy and applies poison to an enemy, 40 nature-based damage, and it is spammable, so even if you get hit with cooldowns activated, you can still do an attack. Gurmit on Guard applies protect positive effects to itself and applies a 50% life shield to itself. So this is pretty cool because this monster grants itself a shield and it can't really be removed. So the only way to get rid of it is to actually deal some damage against this monster. Unfortunately, this skill doesn't deal any damage, so you're not really benefiting from your power output. It's just a shield, which I don't necessarily know if this monster needs a skill like this. Let's keep going. Scare him. Deals moderate nature damage to an enemy, applies nightmare to an enemy. That seems rather weak to me. 35 damage, 1 turn cooldown, and again, it just applies nightmares. I would much rather run the Poison Tongue skill, which deals more damage, has no cooldown, and applies poison, and I would say poison is slightly better than nightmares. But that's skills group 1. Let us move over to skills group 2, Poison Them. This sounds like an AoE. Removes all negative effects from itself. That's good. Removes positive effects from itself. That's not so good. Deals moderate nature damage to all enemies. There's the AoE, and poisons all enemies. Okay, so you lose all your buffs and you lose all your debuffs. So it's essentially an AoE nature-based attack that also poisons the enemy monsters. 2-turn cooldown. It kind of sucks that you lose the buff. I guess that's where applying the positive protective effects to itself comes into play. Hopefully he has more skills that can do this, but right now it's essentially an AoE poison at 40 damage. It's okay. Let's keep going. I do love the fact that I guess you remove negative effects in case you had some sort of, in case you were blind or total blind. Like, that is the cool thing about this skill. If you were total blinded, you can still bypass that essentially and still attack the enemy. You were stronger before. Deals heavy special damage to an enemy, applies damage boost to itself. So 50 damage on a high 3-turn cooldown, but you do give yourself a damage boost, so you do set up for a future attack. And in fact, look at this next skill. Will be your nightmare. Deals massive nature damage to an enemy. Applies nightmare to all enemies. Requires cooldown. 70 damage 1-turn cooldown. I feel like we're seeing 70 damage to become the staple of all attackers right now. We've seen it a lot with Hukuai. We saw it with Ugluk. 70 damage is the thing. However, those two monsters I just named, they had a 0 cooldown spammable skill, not a 70 damage 1-turn cooldown skill with a 25 stamina cost. The other two monsters I named, they also had no stamina cost. Nonetheless, it is a powerful attack. And I guess the AoE Nightmares is a little nice. On to Skills Group 3 we go. So far, I gotta say I'm not that impressed. But Skills Group 3, Bite Them Gurmit. Deals very heavy nature damage to one enemy. Applies poison to an enemy. Applies bleeding to an enemy. Gives 1 extra turn to itself. Hey, at least we have ourselves an extra turn skill. So heavy nature damage with a poison. 55 damage to 3-turn cooldown. And bleed, poison and bleed. The cool thing is that poison reduces damage output by 20% and the monster is going to lose damage over time, and it's the exact same thing with bleeding. So double damage output reduced and they're going to lose damage over time, and you give yourself an extra turn so you can do another attack. War Spells Potion applies to itself triple damage for 2 turns and 1 extra turn, or Back to Baby requires cooldown. So this is interesting, this is new. If you read the note in the bottom, it says monster baby form cannot be targeted and loses 1 turn. So this skill is a gamble. It's this or that. You're either going to give yourself triple damage for 2 turns, which is insanely crazy and powerful. Like, after you do War Spells Potion, you can literally do Bite Them Gurmits, and that 55 damage skill is 165 damage. That's OTK potential. And you get another extra turn, so then you can do Will Be Your Nightmare. You can literally OTK 2 enemy monsters after doing War Spells Potion. So that's pretty darn cool. However, there's a downside, and that downside is you can potentially turn yourself into a baby. Now, when you're a baby form monster, you cannot be targeted and you lose 1 turn. I will say, what I like about this is the little gimmicky thing going on, where you can potentially see your monster turn into a baby. So that's pretty cool, and we're probably going to be seeing more of this in the future. Again, it is a gamble, but I'm so interested. Like, turning into a baby, is that going to be a negative effect? Is that going to be a positive effect? Because even though you lose a turn, you also can't be targeted. So you can't be hit by the enemy. They can't land any skills on you. So it's also kind of like a safeguard, isn't it? It's almost like an evasion. Like if the enemy literally can't target and do anything to you, it's almost like a better evasion. So you can kind of read this as triple damage to yourself for 2 turns and an extra turn, or super evasion. That's the way I'm seeing it, because yeah, ideally you don't want to be a baby, but if nothing can happen to you as a baby, like, you might be safe unless you transform into a baby and then you lose your turn after that, and then you're free to get attacked. I don't know, we're gonna have to see how that works, but interesting. Definitely a gamble. However, the triple damage is insane to me. Like, I wonder if this monster is going to be worth putting on defense, if anything, for the chance to activate that triple damage and OTK an enemy monster. Because keep in mind, in defense, a lot of the times when you put a defense, you're operating under the assumption you're not going to win. So at the very least, your goal should be to take out 1 coin from the enemy team. And you could potentially do War Spells Potion and then do Will Be Your Nightmares, you're definitely going to OTK an enemy monster. You're going to chip off a coin, and that helps your team potentially win. So, I don't know, this is interesting. Overall, I gotta say, up until this skill, I wasn't really impressed. I think I'm more surprised than impressed with his skill set. The potential's there, but that Back to Baby is what I'm unsure about. Because in my head, I'm thinking, okay, you either give yourself triple damage for 2 turns and an extra turn, or you transform to a baby. While you're a baby, you can't attack, but you also can't be attacked. So is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Because if it counts as a negative effect, what if you have one of your other monsters remove it? Or if it counts as a positive effect, can the enemy remove it? I don't know. I'm also not a huge fan of gambles, so I think I would say no to this overall, but it's an interesting concept. Last skill we have Hypnotoad Time. This sounds like a possession skill. Deals very heavy spell damage to an enemy, 60 damage, 1 turn cooldown, 50% chance of possession to an enemy. Why not just make it 100%? Why 50%? Especially on skills group 3. Why? The ultimate is Ruthless Frog. Massive nature damage to an enemy, applies bleed. Why? Why not an AoE? What the heck? Okay, with the exception of War Spells Potion and Bite Them Gurmit combo, and will be your Nightmare, I don't know. I'm not that impressed with this monster. Again, I love I love what it's going for with it transforming into a baby and not being able to be targeted, but you also lose a turn, so you can't do anything in that turn. So if you transform to a baby, and then even though you can't be attacked, once you lose your turn and you go back to an adult and then you can be attacked, then it's kind of useless and you're gonna get wrecked. So I don't know. I really don't know. If there's some way that applying that positive protective effect could help you, and then transform to a baby and you can somehow keep yourself from getting attacked, that'd be cool. But I don't know, I'm not really feeling this monster. We gotta wait and see how that turning to a baby works. And again, there are times when that triple damage is gonna like work in your favor, you're gonna obliterate the enemy, but I'm not really sure. I'm really not sure how I feel about him. He's definitely strong. He has a 70 damage skill. He has a 60% skill, even if it's 50% chance of possession. It is powerful. The bite them Gurmit is a 55 damage that poison the bleeds and sets up another turn. Like, this monster can definitely OTK essentially. Well, in one turn, because he has an extra turn skill, Bite Them Gurmit follow up with Will Be Your Nightmare, he's gonna kill someone 100%. So I like that much to him. He looks impressive, I guess, until you actually use him. Then we'll really know, because at least he can't be possessed, and at rank 5 he can't be stunned either. So that's 2 of the main denials, right? Even if this monster gets total blinded, you technically could do your extra turn and get rid of the total blind. You do poison them, which removes negative effects, so total blind doesn't really have an effect on him. So part of me is liking him. Maybe I'm trying to like him. He doesn't look that impressive, but at the same time, like, I'm seeing these little nifty things he has where maybe he could be impressive and he might catch everyone by surprise. So we're gonna have to wait and see on this monster. So right now, I'm a little unsure how to feel about this monster. A little unsure. So that's going to be it for my analysis. Now I want to hear from all of you guys. Please let me know in the comments below. What are you guys thinking about Gurlik? Do you like him? Do you dislike him? What do you think about his skill? Specifically War Spells Potion. Any thoughts in the comments below? Thank you very much, and I will see you all next time.